Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Savanah.
What are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about vintage board games.
So first, as always, we just want to say thank you to our anonymous sponsor as well as all of our patrons who really help us out and help us keep this podcast going. So thank you.
Yes, please, as always. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, please leave a comment below. We love to hear your suggestions about anything you'd like to hear us Primas discuss. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into the episode. We are going to be talking about 3 different board games: Iconic, Pretty Pretty Princess, Careers for Girls, and The Bride Game. So kind of what inspired this episode to occur is I'm a pretty big board game fan. I love playing board games on the regular. And so one day when I was at my local Bookman's, which is like a buy, use, trade entertainment store, I came across this beautiful game of a fully head-to-toe picture of this bride. And it just looked like such a cursed object that I had to have it. So this beautiful vintage board game, and I just was like, wow, I bet there's some gems in there. So I purchased it on the spot, and I texted Savanah and I said that we should do a vintage board game collection. So from then on, I've been kind of keeping my eye on eBay, trying to find other little vintage board games that we could play and then have an episode on. So I kind of wanted to talk about our childhood experience with games and kind of where we're at now with playing games. Okay. So Savanah, you want to go first?
Yeah, so I think my first memories of playing board games were probably like Candyland and Chutes and Ladders. I had both of those at home and I would play them just like over and over and over again.
Would you cheat?
I would always cheat at both of them. My mom claims that she never knew, and when I explained this to her, she was shocked. Anyways, so that was like my first introduction, I think probably with board games that I remember. And then from there, growing up, I played all like the traditional ones except for Monopoly. I've never been into Monopoly, but I played Scrabble and Clue and all of the greatest hits probably for the most part. And then as Ryan has gotten really into board games, she's introduced me to some more grown-up games, I guess you could say. Or at least not like the traditional like Hasbro type games that I was playing as a kid. And I feel kind of mixed on board games at this point in time. I most of the time like them. I have a hard time playing them without Ryan, just because of like I struggle with figuring out the directions at times. But yeah, but I like playing them, but sometimes they're a little confusing. I don't like them if they're like overly complicated. But for the most part, I feel like they're pretty fun.
What's your favorite kind of board game? Do you know, like, I don't know, I don't need to say this so condescendingly, but do you like games that are more like chance-based or high strategy, or things that require like, I guess, something like Catan where it's like you manage your resources, or something that's like a dexterity-based game like Jenga?
I like ones that are kind of cooperative, I guess. Or like I really like the ones like Codenames. Is it Codenames? Like where you're working with a team member, like trying to get them to guess something. I think those are probably my favorite. I don't necessarily love strategy games all the time. They kind of stress me out.
So maybe communication games, you could say.
Yeah.
So games that require more focus on your brain and what you're saying than what you're doing. Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I feel like I've always pretty much really liked board games. I have many memories playing Monopoly, which I will never, ever, ever play again for like 6 hours on end. Definitely played Candyland. I think Candyland was probably my favorite game back in the day, and I would always shuffle the cards so that when I would go first, I would get like the bubblegum princess, I don't know, ice princess, frosted princess. Yeah, so what that princess, and I would draw her and I'd be like, oh, here I go, all the way winning. I do like winning. I enjoy the feeling of winning. My favorite game right now, I've really been enjoying the Stardew Valley board game, which is a cooperative strategy board game. I also really like cooperative board games, but I think I prefer cooperative strategy board games. I think they're a bit more unique than just like, how many points do you have at the end of the game? That's how you win. So those are not my favorite kind of games, but my least favorite type of game are definitely just roll and move. Like your Sorries, your Monopolies, that kind of game. And I also wanted to talk about kind of gendered games, since we are going to be talking about 3 vintage games for girls. Get those kind of biases and thoughts out of the way first. So can you recall playing any like specific girl games growing up?
Well, one of the games that we are talking about today, I recall playing. So I played Pretty Pretty Princess a lot when I was a kid at my friend's house. That's the only like board game I remember. I do remember playing like MASH a lot of the time, and that Soulmates game as well. And then I had some plug and play type games. Like I had like a Dream Life one that I think I mentioned before that was like a video game kind of for girls. But that's, I think, all I remember that was like specifically gendered. What about you?
I don't know. I can't recall really playing any gendered games. You know, when I was Googling and doing research for this, Candyland often came up on those gendered lists. But I didn't actually Google games for boys either, so I'm just curious if candy equals girls or just because it's so colorful. But it was often on those lists for girls. I really wanted this Mall Madness game and I wanted to get it for us, but it was kind of expensive and it wasn't vintage. It came out in like 2001. I would say that MASH and Soulmates are in kind of the feminine zeitgeist for young girls, so I think I would count those as kind of gendered games, especially because when I played with boys, they'd be like, ooh, playing a girl game, getting the inside scoop, the inside look on what you guys do for fun.
I don't think I've ever even oh wait, no, I was gonna say I've never played with boys, but I did play with your brother once on a road trip.
No, I can definitely call sitting around the band table playing with boys. Oh, I can also remember doing like gendered Mad Libs, like sleepover for girls, Bad Limbs, things like that. So should we take a deeper look into each game?
Yeah,
talk about our experiences here. We'll start with the most non-wild one, at least to me, which is PPP, Pretty Pretty Princess. Rebranding, Savannah?
Yes. So here we have the Pretty Pretty Princess board game, one of my personal favorites, as I mentioned before. This is a board game for young children, ages 5 and up. It is a fantasy role-playing game where you collect different pieces of jewelry and try to become the Pretty Pretty Princess. It was produced by Winning Moves Games, USA, and it was developed by Elizabeth Pacazza in 1989. Hasbro acquired the game in 1990, and then it has since been licensed to Winning Moves in 2019. And Winning Moves Games are known for being the company that kind of like collects games and reproduces them.
Yeah, so from what I could tell is Winning Moves Games is a production company where games kind of go to die. That's what I got anyways. They reproduce like Monopoly, Credit Card Edition, or Monopoly for millennials, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Uno variants, who knows. But it seems like they thought they could make a quick buck off of reselling Pretty Pretty Princess as the 1990s classic game, which I guess worked. I mean, we bought it. It's in Barnes & Nobles. I'm sure some people that are our age who have kids that are 3 years old are also buying that game and fondly recalling their memories.
Probably.
Let's dig a little bit deeper here. I really liked the tactile pieces in Pretty Pretty Princess. It was probably my favorite part. I was pretty impressed that you got a full set of jewelry, including earrings, a necklace, a bracelet, and the crown to complete the look.
Yeah, I definitely think that was always my favorite part growing up, as well as now, just like the dress up aspect of the game.
So for me, the pieces of jewelry did help sell the game, not by very much, but it did help sell the game to me as an adult playing it. But Savannah, I do want to know what it was like for you to play the game as a child, because I did not have that experience.
Yeah, I definitely really loved it. Like I said, I liked the dress up element. That was my favorite part. And I think that oftentimes when I'd play with other girls, that's what they liked too, albeit I think probably sometimes people got their feelings hurt or would have like mini tantrums if they didn't get to wear the color that they wanted, or they didn't win and get to wear the crown at the end. But it usually would like fall in line with other kind of like gendered games or activities that we would do at sleepovers. Like we would maybe play Pretty Pretty Princess, then we would make Shrinky Dinks, and then maybe play MASH or something. Like it kind of would just always fall in line with everything else that we would be doing.
You were playing MASH at 5 years old?
Probably. I feel like I don't remember a time when I wasn't playing MASH.
I feel like you introduced me to MASH, and I never learned it from any of my friends. Yeah, I never broke out Pretty Pretty Princess. We were always playing House. I have vivid memories of fighting over who got the role of mommy and baby. But yeah, no, did not break that out. I wanted to go ahead and ponder the term princess for a little bit. How do we feel about the name Pretty Pretty Princess in 2021? Are princesses canceled? I don't really like saying that word.
I guess it depends in what sense. If you mean in like the sense of monarchy, I would say yes. Monarchy is canceled. In just terms of like a fun word, I would say no, just in the same sense that people like to wear things that say baby and have it be kind of like cutesy, but cutesy in a like subversive way kind of a thing. So I don't, but I do think that there is a problem with people saying princess in in a way to like talk down, I guess, which I don't really see people doing. At least I'm glad nobody calls me princess.
I mean, I am very glad when some fantasy YA protagonist gets condescendingly called princess by her soon-to-be lover. And, I mean, there's that.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of that.
We don't read the same books. There would definitely be a riot if they renamed this game like Pretty Pretty Royalty or Fancy Dancy Royalty or something like that to make it more gender neutral. But I guess we can really try to propel princess as a gender neutral term itself.
Yeah, I would imagine if they were trying to rebrand it that they would try to do like Pretty Pretty Princess and Very Brave Knight or something. Although I feel like that would be potentially just as damaging if they're just reinforcing like two binaries there. But I would like to think that this could be inclusive as a game. I knew boys growing up who probably would have liked to play this game and wear the jewelry, so it's not like inherently gendered, but it unfortunately still is, just based on the world that we live in.
Yeah. But at the same time, I'm sure there's a lot of dads that would not buy this game for their sons and moms and others.
Yeah, I think so. And I think I could imagine mothers or fathers also not wanting to buy it for their daughters to reinforce maybe like the traditional connotations with princess as well.
I'm not a fan of this game either way. I wouldn't buy it for anyone. So it has a 4.3 rating on Board Game Geek, which I thought was a little silly. Board Game Geek is a popular board game rating and review website. So I'm used to seeing it for like pretty complex games that I'm considering buying. And they tend to be pretty critical and harsh of games. But a 4.3 I feel like is a pretty solid rating for this game. It's out of 10, by the way. And it has a weight of 1.04, the lowest being 1. Weight in the board game industry means complexity, and it's a good game for ages 5 and up. I just kind of wanted to throw that information out there. We don't really have to talk about it. I think it's a bad game. It's just you spin and you get your jewelry, and I can imagine there being a lot of fights about it. I will say that since it is a spinner, it is a little challenging to cheat. So that's like a boon it has going for it.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it probably mostly due to nostalgia. Again, I like the dress-up elements. I wish there was more games that had dress-up elements. I'm sure there are. I would like to play them.
And I think that, as we'll discuss with a later game where they had some kind of like acted out elements, I think this game could really benefit from some acted out moments where it's like pretend to wave to a crowd of people, or like pretend to ride a horse, or what would the name of your horse be? Yeah. I don't know, something to do with horses I think would be really crowd pleasing. I think that would be a lot more fun, and I think it would have had a lot more enjoyment if there was some kind of actual thing to do than just spin a spinner and put on a piece of jewelry.
Yeah.
Our next game is the can of worms I've been waiting for. I've cracked the code. We're talking about the secret history of Careers for Girls. Careers for Girls. We played the 1990 version. The original version was released in 1955, and it was just branded as Careers, a gender-neutral kind of thing. I would argue that it was probably more targeted towards boys. I think probably most games are targeted towards boys. So the game has a 2.7 rating on Board Game Geek, so lower than PPP. And players can choose from 6 jobs: supermom, rock star, school teacher, fashion designer, animal doctor, and college graduate. I guess that's not a career, but like it's still a path that helps you get points towards your goal. and it can help you go to certain careers later. So like I stated before, the original incarnation of careers came out in 1955, and the same kind of premise applies. I think it's a really fascinating board game franchise to look at because you can kind of see what they thought of popular careers that children would like and want to achieve for the time. So if we look at 1955, they have careers like farming, expedition to the moon, and going to the sea. Whatever that means.
That sounds very ominous.
I know. Do they mean like a diver, a fisherman? I don't know. I guess we'll have to get the game and find out. I also thought it was funny because in my cursory research, they chose the words expedition to the moon because astronaut wasn't really a word that was super common. In 1970, they introduced ecology, teaching, and sports. And then in 1980, computer science was added along with those as well. So you can kind of see how it trucks along, trying to keep up with modern careers. Out of all those careers, Savanah, what is most appealing to you throughout the times there?
The old-timey careers?
Mm-hmm.
Probably going to the moon, or what was it, going to space?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one probably sounds the most intriguing to me. And probably would have back then because it would have just been so like, it almost would sound like being like a superhero or something.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even know, like people haven't even really done that yet. So, yeah.
I agree. I think also, just from memory, showbiz made it into a career one, and politics also made it in, and big business, whatever that means. It's weird that doctor wasn't really like a notable one.
Or like army, military, general or something.
Mm-hmm. That would make sense to me. So in 1990, careers was kind of revitalized and brought back to life, although it never stopped being produced. And it was branded as Careers for Girls. And as I stated before, but I'll restate them again, careers were supermom, rock star, school teacher, fashion designer, animal doctor, and college graduate. So I just want to, what do you think of those careers?
I mean, I feel like they were somewhat diverse, but I feel like it could have been better. I feel like it's a little heavy-handed with like the creative careers versus like STEM careers, or just other, not even necessarily STEM. Like it could have had like businesswoman, librarian, lawyer, something else, just in like a different genre of careers, I guess. I didn't really feel like it needed to have fashion designer and rock star. But I don't know. They were fine. They weren't like the most upsetting careers in the world.
I thought that supermom was so backwards that it became forwards, if you know what I mean. Like, mom is, of course, a great career. But I think they intended it as kind of like these are the roles that women have. And, it kind of didn't really have that like accepting connotation that it has in the 21st century.
Yeah, it was also kind of funny because in the mom track, you kind of end up getting a career in a sense as well, because there's like the part where she franchises her cookie recipe and makes like a bunch of money, which is, I thought was kind of interesting that they like added that in, which I feel like is probably accurate for quite a few like stay-at-home moms. They will sometimes try to like incorporate some other type of business aspect in their life.
Yeah, that's putting it nicely. We're of course referring to MLMs, which could make it into the modern day careers path. I don't know. So I wanted to ask Savanah, what do you think the reception was like in the 90s for this game?
I would think that in the 90s people probably like would have liked it, or that it was like kind of trying to be progressive or feminist in a way, just to say that we should have careers for girls, like, and that they could be a animal doctor, or I guess that's like the only really exciting one and there are unusual one, but at least just I feel like probably to say like to have careers for girls probably would have been progressive at the time.
Yeah, I thought so too. And to me overall, I thought the careers, like, I don't know, they were overall okay, and I can't think of any like worse ones. I don't know. Maybe I can't. I don't. Anyways, I was wrong. You were wrong. Apparently it was pulled off the shelves rather quickly and production stopped. I'm going to read a Washington AP post from back in the day. It's the head of the U.S. Small Business Administration chided Parker Brothers, Inc. Tuesday for showing insensitivity to modern realities. and a game that lists supermom, school teacher as key careers for girls. Parker Brothers is sending the wrong message to young girls. The SBA administrator Susan Engel leader. Even Barbie dolls come with business suits these days. Careers for Girls is now a board game targeted for girls ages 8 to 12. Players select from 6 careers. Supermom, school teacher, we've gone over these. Instructions for the game packaged in a hot pink box include show us how to slow dance with your main squeeze, describe your dream husband, and tell us the names of your 8 children. First of all, burn all your chocolate chip cookies, which I'm glad they included because I burned all my chocolate chip cookies and may have cost me the game.
It's true. It was quite unfortunate.
Yeah, and I got laryngitis not once, but twice, and lost all my fame. So let me just give like a brief rundown of how to play the game, and I think it was unique for the time, and I think it's still unique now. So you have 3 categories of what you can achieve in this game, and that's fame, happiness, and money. So you write your own self-driven equation, like fame could be you want to get 20 fame, and then you want to get 20 happiness, and then you want to get 20 money, and that equals 60, and 60 is the goal, the number you're trying to reach. So you could win the game by just getting 60 money, if that makes sense. I don't know, maybe we can post the rules in the description if you're really curious about how to play these games. But the fact of the matter is that it's a player-driven game where you can set your own goals. So it does feel like the game starts with a choice, which I like. What did you think of that?
I liked it. I liked it in the sense that like you could kind of see people create their own demise at times, depending on what numbers they were. I think playing it like the first time was a little challenging just because I didn't have any kind of sense of like how hard it would be to get so much fame or so much happiness. I just was kind of like guessing mostly, and kind of like guessing what I would want, I guess. But it wasn't really like based on any kind of strategy versus playing it like a second time. I would know like, oh, like fame might be somewhat easier to get than money or something. In that sense, that would have made it a little bit easier to create those numbers in the beginning.
Yeah, I think overall everything was kind of even at some point as far as my money went and my fame and my happiness. My personal goals were 30 happiness and 30 fame and 0 money.
I don't remember what my goals were. So I couldn't say, but I know I picked some strange numbers. I was like, I want to say like 10,000 for money, like 15 for fame, and 35 for happiness. If that equals 60, then that's what it was.
So kind of looking at the Careers brand, we can kind of see what would have happened for Careers for Girls if it hadn't come out in the 90s and came out a little bit earlier. There is another game that's kind of an honorable mention that I'm bringing up that is much worse than this already sexist 1990s game. And it was made by the minds behind Scrabble and Parcheesi. And it's called What Shall I Be? The Exciting Game of Careers for Girls. And this one came out in the 1960s. And the careers for this one included teacher, airline hostess, actress, nurse, model, and ballet dancer. So I guess we can have some more strict gendered professions portrayed.
Yeah, those would be worse.
I would say so. It's unclear what the perception of this game was at the time. It was very similar and clearly inspired by the Careers brand, so that's why I'm bringing it up now. Cards like "you are overweight" existed, and it told you directly that that was bad for airline hostess, ballet dancer, and model. Or if you got told that you were pretty, it was told you that you could be a model. Or things like "you are graceful" or "you are a fast thinker," things like that, where it's like all directly kind of attacking you, I would say.
Yes, it sounds like it. It does remind me of kind of like the original Barbie, or one of the original Barbies, I don't know which one, but she came with like a scale that was like permanently set to 95 pounds and like a book that said how to diet, and then on the inside it just said don't eat. So it feels very much in line with other things maybe of that time period.
Yeah, it does. 95 pounds. And Barbie's like tall, so it's very hard for tall people to be under 100 pounds.
Yeah, it might have not been 95. I don't know. A very low number.
We got all that out of the way. Careers is like an actual franchise, and it's kind of fun to look at. Let me know if you want us to do a deep dive on Careers, especially because we haven't even gotten to the weird part yet. So, Savannah, the weird part is that this game was created by James Cook Brown. And when I saw this name, I was like, is it that one guy? And it was that one guy. You may not be familiar with him, but I learned about him in one of my classes. And he's a sociologist and science fiction writer. He is famous for the Troika incident. I'm not quite sure how to say that one, as well as his sociology papers. And he believed in a utopia with free education and free information access. And he kind of wrote about the internet before the internet existed.
That is very unexpected.
He's also famous for creating this language called Loglan. And there's an international flock of Loglanists who continue to use this language to this day in certain science fiction circles and conventions.
Weird.
So I'd be interested to kind of read these books and see how this mindset would lead him to create the original Careers.
In the game, don't you have to pay to go to college?
Mm-hmm.
So that's not really in line with his ethos, is it?
I mean, maybe it was just realistic.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he's just trying to make a realistic game.
Mm-hmm.
But this was the only game that he ever published, which is also wild because normally once you get into game making, you tend to make more.
Mm-hmm.
So he really planted his flag on this one. So how do we feel about Careers? Kind of wrapping up our thoughts here.
I feel like this one I would give like a moderate rating. Like it was fine. It was kind of fun. I felt like it was a little long. I would have liked it if there was like more opportunities to go to college because you could only like happen to do that if you landed on a certain space, and like most people in our game didn't even get to do that track, and it like helps you to be able to get your other careers more easily without having to like pay money necessarily. So I would have liked if they maybe like doubled that up in the game, like having it also on the opposite side of the board. But overall it was fine. I won this game, so I liked that part about it. What about you?
I lost. Like I said, I got laryngitis twice. I burned my chocolate chip cookies. I did get to know that Savannah would name her 8 children after the Duggars. That was an interesting little tidbit I learned. I did get to see my brother dance with his main squeeze, so I also enjoyed that. But other than all of that, I hated it.
Yeah, you had a really rough
I
time.
was not enjoying it. Felt like torture. I have told myself multiple times that I would never play Monopoly again, and I just got that feeling that I was playing Monopoly, just sitting there, rolling a dice, seeing what was going to happen next, where we landed, and you land on a space, a thing happens, and life goes on. It's not fun.
It took a long time, but not as long as some other games that we will get to.
It took less time than the length of the movie live action version Beauty and the Beast, but not by much.
Yeah, it was cutting it close.
I wanted to ask you, Savannah, just as a thought experiment. We talked about the idea of princesses, but is the idea of a game about careers bad, especially in this time that we're living in where there's kind of a movement of being anti-career oriented?
I think that for me personally, I probably wouldn't buy this game for any children at this time, just with my own feelings about that. If somebody else wants to buy that for their kids, I guess there's nothing necessarily inherently wrong with buying a game about careers, but I'm not sure that that's like really what we should be promoting. What about you?
I think if the career aspect was more gamified and felt less serious, I think that this game kind of portrayed itself like this is a practice run for life and careers. Mm-hmm. And so I think it needs to take itself a lot less seriously, especially because in the rule book it said, just like in life, there are choices that you make and choices that you can't. So be prepared. And in reality, you really can't make very many choices at all, except for your win conditions. I think we should probably fade out games about careers, especially if you really want to be a fashion designer and it's just not in your cards and you never roll and get that one.
Yeah, I think so.
I think games that are about a specific career could be fun.
Yeah, I think that could be fun. I think I am starting to less like games that like emulate real life because it just feels like, why would I want to do that?
Even a fashion designer?
I'm already stuck here. It would depend. Like, that's why I had to stop playing Animal Crossing, is because I just felt like I was stuck in this world of having to, like, pay off my mortgage on my house. And that's, like, a real reality. Not for me personally, I don't have a mortgage, but I just felt like I was constantly just paying off debt in that game. And that led to me to not play.
That's weird.
Well, that's how I felt.
Oh, well, I'm going to try to invalidate those feelings.
Okay.
How would I improve the game, and how would you improve the game?
Like I said, I would probably add on the opposite side of the board another way to go to college, just so you could have that be an option, and as well as probably just try to incorporate some different types of career options.
Yes, career options and just more choice and more like weight to what you are doing with your time in that game. The most valuable currency you have in life is your time, and I feel like I've wasted mine. I mean, I'm happy to do this episode. I really like board games, so I'm happy to talk about it, so I guess it wasn't a waste of time. But it was a waste of time, and I wish I just read the rule book.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break from talking about some games because we have some lovely fan art that we would like to feature. Our very first ever submission of fan art that was given to us. This lovely painting. So wonderful, so beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yes,
to this
we
person.
love it. It'll be in the back of our backdrop.
Yes.
From this point forward. So please, if you want to have any submissions, of course our email is available to contact us for any posting.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Savanah, as an art master, an art master, tell me, what do you think of this as a piece of art?
I quite like it. I like how the flowers are stylized. I like the shading on the cactus, especially the highlights. I think it's great. I love it.
You heard that. Approved by someone who has a master's degree in art.
Yes.
Back to the show?
Yes.
All right, so our final game that we have on the docket.
Yes, so our final game is The Bride Game. This came out in 1971, and it was published by Selchow and Ryder, who also made Scrabble. And the object of this game is to be the first girl to get her complete matching wedding party, along with the necessary accessories for the wedding ceremony. So this game purely just consists of like rolling a dice and trying to collect cards. Each card has like your wedding party on it, a wedding cake, a bouquet, a ring, and something old, something new, something borrowed, and something blue. And you have to get all of those things by rolling a specific number on the dice, and then you have to, again, roll the dice to go along the wedding procession to essentially get to the finish line and win.
Yeah, you just roll a die, and you just... yeah, that's it. That's it. That's it again. What do you know? I think it is fascinating to look at the creators, Selchow and Ryder, who again created Parcheesi and Scrabble. I've never played Parcheesi before, but I know it's in like the classic game zeitgeist. So apparently they really wanted to break into the girl game industry, and as a result, they came back with this bride game. Again, the box, stunning. Iconic box. And they came up with the Emily Post popularity game. The goal of that one, as an honorable mention, is to balance good looks, smart clothes, and attractive manners for popularity's sake.
Great.
Honestly, it sounds like it would be a better game than the bride game, just because it sounds like you have to do some balancing and management. So despite that wording, I think it may be a better game.
Perhaps.
Let us know if you want us to play that one.
Yeah. I do think it's interesting that they were trying to get into the girl game market, just because I personally kind of think of Scrabble as being a girl game. Not that it's like gendered in any way that you look at it, but just me, I played primarily with like girls growing up, and I feel like all my friends who were girls who also really like to read and read books that were probably geared for girls, like we were all the ones who were like really into it. And so to me, it feels almost like a girl's game.
Yeah, I do think that Scrabble is implied to be a boys' game just because it's not a girl's game. So it is kind of that weird dichotomy. If they have something branded for girls, does that mean is everything else not for girls?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they do have like a pink Scrabble or like a more feminine Scrabble out there.
Probably.
They have branded everything nowadays. And I do think that competitive Scrabble is more girl-oriented. And I would also like it to be noted that girls reading, I think, is a pretty new phenomenon. I mean, girls have always read, but the fact that girls are associated as like the bookish types who like read endless books, I think really developed with the creation of the young adult genre, which is new.
That makes sense. Also, I would say probably girls haven't always been able to read in history.
I guess you're right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what I thought was fun about researching this game is that there weren't a lot of technical articles written about it. Like a lot of the information that I got from careers was from like actual board game archive databases. But for this one, a lot of it was just like blogs from girls who have played this game and fondly remember it as children, or from girls whose mothers fondly remember it. There's a lot of stories about how people like want to collect the dresses that look just like the ones in the game, or the jewelry, like the ruby ring. They've always dreamed of it. And I will say that the art style is really lovely. It's quite charming and a little haunted.
It did feel potentially haunted, this game. But I did also just really like the aesthetic of it.
Yeah, I think when we were playing it and looking through all the designs, you clicked with the modern wedding dress.
Probably. I also really liked the way that it showed the like jewelry as well on the cards.
And of course, if you're listening to this, feel free to check us out on YouTube because we will be having screenshots of the cards here as well. So after you've collected all of your components for your perfect wedding, you then have to march your way to the altar. And the only way to do this is by rolling a 1, 2, or 3. Anything more is too fast and you're clumsy and you fall and I don't even know, but you can't move if you roll a 4, 5, or 6.
Yeah, and this is the part of the game that for me felt the most unbearable. I guess it just felt like it definitely took the longest of people. Like we were just all sitting there just rolling the dice like over and over and over again.
That was actually my favorite aspect of the game. It was just so hilarious to me how we were all just taking turns trying to roll a die and get the correct result. And it kind of reminded me of like real-time dice games where you like roll dice as quickly as you can to move as quickly as you can. So if we had all had our different dice and we were all trying to do it at once, I think it would have been more fun. How do we feel about the idea of a wedding game as we are examining kind of the main component that makes up this game? So princess, career, and now bride.
I thought it was fun. I don't feel like there's nothing inherently wrong with that apart from like the game being gendered and like having gendered directions, like specifically saying that like the first girl to roll the highest number goes first or whatever it was.
Yeah, and the first girl to reach the altar wins. So we kept making jokes that my brother couldn't win if he reached the altar first.
Yeah. So apart from that, I don't think that there's anything wrong. I guess it could be nice if there was like an alternative to being the bride as well in the game. But I don't know. I'm not like an anti-marriage person, so it doesn't feel like super wrong.
Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm an anti-marriage person. And I'm not like against people. I don't think we should abolish marriage or anything. Like do whatever you want. But I think that a game targeted towards children about marriage is a little questionable in my opinion.
I think that this game would do much better like today if it was rebranded as like a bachelorette party game. I could totally see that.
It was on a list of bachelorette games that you could play.
Yeah. I could definitely see it in that setting. For kids, I would agree, like, that doesn't seem maybe, like, the most appropriate, at least to be, like, pushing that agenda, I guess, of marriage on kids. I would say the same thing about, like, traditional princess movies or something that try to push, like, the importance of relationships on kids. For adults, I think it could be, like, pretty fun.
Well, no, it's not a fun game.
I just mean, like, if they, I don't know, if you were, like, at a bachelorette party and you're, like, drinking.
Yeah, maybe drink. Like, there's a lot of fun little adult modifications you can make to any game,
yeah.
So I'm sure you could do the same thing and, like, kind of ha-ha, hee-hee, laugh at the 1970s nature of it.
Mm-hmm.
So how would we improve the game? I would improve the game. I don't know, just like with any game, just anything that doesn't involve rolling and just doing the thing. Anything that involves choice is so much better.
I agree. I think if there was like, I don't know, just really that part at the end really got me when like moving down the aisle. If there was like some other thing, maybe with like, maybe not with rolling the dice, but having to like move your cards in a certain way. So it was like you're actually getting to move down the aisle or something. I don't know. I think that like would have maybe made it more fun. Or again, I think just marketing it towards adults would make it a lot more enjoyable.
But girls dream of weddings.
I mean, you're a girl. I don't think you're dreaming of a wedding.
I mean, young girls. I
Yeah.
think I did definitely a little bit fantasize about my wedding. Not as much as you. Savannah was definitely more of the wedding person when we were young.
I was definitely into all the TLC wedding shows, for sure.
I guess that's all the games that we've talked about today. And what do they all have in common? So there are some sure through lines here. They're all roll or spin and move games. Games being like Monopoly, Sorry, where you just roll and you do the thing. And a lot of them have gendered terms either in their rules or in their titles themselves. Why would they choose that kind of game for girls? The roll and play.
My assumption would be that it would be simple, but again, I would just assume that they would make more games like that for kids in general.
But the bride game is for kids like 8 to 14.
I don't know. I don't know very much about like game history, I guess. So I don't know what were games not like that they would have been playing at that time.
Scrabble, Barchesi.
Yeah. But I mean, they were playing Monopoly, and I would assume Sorry was probably out at that time. And I liked those games when I was a kid. Not Monopoly, but like Sorry, I remember I really liked playing. And like Trouble as well.
I don't think Trouble came out till later.
I just mean in general, like what I liked as playing as a kid. So I would assume, I don't know. I didn't really necessarily think about that being like gendered. Why do you think that was like intentional?
Let's just assume the worst and just assume that they chose the simplest design because they assume girls are the simplest. I think that Pretty Princess can be excused from this table only because it was A, designed by a woman, and B, it is for girls ages like 4 and up. So I think that having a game like that is not bad.
Yeah.
For real young kids. But anything, I think, even ages 5 and up, I think demands some kind of agency while playing a game.
I guess maybe you could say that kids might think they have agency while playing these other games, even if they don't. Like, they may not
Why are
be
you
aware.
being so weird about this? Kids know what's up.
I mean, I know that they do. I'm just thinking about myself. Like, I could imagine playing these games and thinking I was strategizing, even if there was no way to strategize. But maybe that's just me.
Yeah.
And my own naivete.
I can definitely recall like playing games. We'll take Sorry for example. Like with Sorry, there's certain like, it's like you're watching a movie almost. Like there's not really any control, but it's really fun and exciting when you land on someone and send them back to start, especially if it's your least favorite brother. Or like when you're playing Monopoly and you make that perfect trade so you can get Park Place. So I think with that, I can kind of understand it being exciting, but I think we should teach kids critical thinking skills and strategies earlier.
I would think so. But also, could there be an argument for like having fun just for fun's sake? Like, does every game have to be involving those types of like critical thinking skills?
I think some form of agency should be in every single game.
Okay.
Yes.
It's just a question. I don't necessarily think that that's how it should be. I'm just like, I don't know. It's the same thing with like anything else. Like if you just want something to be fun and you don't want to be thinking critically, I don't know. Sometimes with kid things, I feel like they're gonna have to like have a stressful life anyways. Why make this one experience also maybe be stressful for them?
There's movies for that. There's TV shows. There's a lot of things for that.
That's true.
But a game is a game, and it should be played with thought and intention.
Maybe I just don't approach games as seriously as you do, Ryan.
I don't think I'm approaching it seriously. Tic-tac-toe is a game that I think is a better game than any of these games.
But I guess it's just based on what you're like judging it on. Like you're basing it on like that ability to strategize, and that's what makes it a better game.
Correct.
Because to me, that's not what I'm like judging it on. Like I'm like, what does it look like? How was the experience? Like, for me, especially, I feel like it was kind of fun to just play these games because I was just playing games with my family. And I haven't really done that a lot since the pandemic happened. So that in itself just made it, like, enjoyable. And even if it was performative to like act things out in a game, like that was still genuinely enjoyable for me, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was definitely fun to see my brother dressed up as a pretty princess. And it was fun to be around a table. But there's just a lot better games out there. Please stop playing Monopoly. Please. There's one thing you get from this video. Stop. But we can kind of continue on. I think it would be kind of interesting to talk about kind of modern day equivalents and if this still exists. So I know that when I go to a Target and I'm in the game section, I definitely do see like games for girls, or like games to play at sleepovers in like a pink box. Especially like the Never Have I Ever brand, or like certain card games and things like that, party games. But I'm just asking you, do you think that gendered games, do you see them also kind of on the daily, or have you seen that at all?
I don't really recall. I feel like I probably don't look at board game sections as often as you do. And at least I haven't played any type of games like that with any kids recently. But I would imagine that they're still probably like pretty prevalent. But I would also imagine maybe like falling out of fashion.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that we'll see less and less gendered games as time goes on, just mainly for the market appeal. I mean, when I was on lists, there are still thousands upon thousands of listicles out there about like games for girls, or parents, you should buy your girl this game, ages blah blah blah. So clearly people are still Googling these things and looking for advice to get games for their girls.
I guess it would be different maybe if it was like games for girls, but in a way that wasn't like saying it was like just for girls, but maybe it was like about girls. Like I'm thinking about like some like children's books that I've seen. Like I think I have one that's like about like strong women through history or something, and it seems almost like a gendered book, because I actually think it is called like Good Night Stories for Strong Girls or something. I don't know. In a way, like it is gendered, but it's like trying to at least be not in like a stereotypical way. So I feel like I would like to see that, but then just have it be like not gendered at all. Like it could just be like story time about feminists or something like that, if that makes sense what I'm trying to allude to.
Yeah, there's kind of games like that. I can think of a few. Like there's a Ruth Bader Ginsburg inspired game called I Dissent that I've seen at Target and I've played. And it's just a black box with like the justice like collar and hammer. And then there was a game called Icons that I got for my friend for their birthday. And I haven't played, but it was pink lettering, and it's about women icons. I don't know what the actual gameplay is like, but it just seemed kind of like a regular game, just featured women icons. But I don't really see many young boys that are probably going to reach for that.
But that's just why you should buy it for them as birthday gifts.
Right. I guess that about wraps us up. We've talked about games as far back as 1971. We really did a blast from the past, and I feel grateful that I live in the now.
Yeah, I think that I do as well. Just to be able to have more options in life. Like maybe today on Careers for Girls, they could have podcasting as an option.
So just to kind of wrap up here and help us with our entrepreneurship of our podcasting ourselves, we are women who are in careers and we need your help. So help us by liking, subscribing, commenting, and giving us a rating on iTunes. Have a great career-filled day.
Yes, bye.
Bye. Whenever I hear a really loud plane, I always think of The Knowing.